Good morning and welcome to your Friday Faith Fill Up. There's a common phrase that we use nowadays. It's put your money where your mouth is. Many people like to say a lot of things, like to inject themselves into situations, but putting your money where your mouth is saying, this is where I'm putting all my confidence. I'm 100% on board with something and ready to act upon it. Well, in the book of Ezra, we find that kind of a mentality, not with man, not with what they think they can accomplish, but with what God can accomplish. If you're familiar with the book of Ezra, they are rebuilding not just the temple, but they're rebuilding worship, that it would be what God intended for it to be. And of course, there's enemies. The enemies came in and tried to discourage them in every way that they could. They threatened them. But then King Darius wrote a decree saying, leave them alone, in a sense, but they still were there. They were still talking and all of those things. But when you get to Ezra chapter 8, you find something in the heart of Ezra that I think is awesome for all of us to really get a hold of. In verse number 21, he says, then I proclaimed a fast there at the river Ahava, that we might afflict ourselves before our God, to seek of him a right way for us and for our little ones and for all our substance. So it starts off here that they are seeking God. They want what God wants, is an easy way to put it. But then notice what he says in verse number 22. It says, for I was ashamed to require of the king a band of soldiers and horsemen to help us against the enemy in the way, because we had spoken unto the king, saying, the hand of our God is upon all them for good that seek him, but his power and his wrath is against all them that forsake him. I love this proclamation by Ezra. Basically what he says is, we're not going to ask the king for help. We can't do that. The word there is ashamed. We would be ashamed to do that. Well, why? Is it because of their own pride? Is it because of their own ego that they would be ashamed? No, it goes much further than that. It's because they put God out there. He says, because we have spoken unto the king, saying the hand of our God is upon all them, speaking about us in a sense. So he's saying here that we're going to have our confidence in God. We already told the king that, and we can't back off of it. We've got to stay with what we said. And then in the next verse, so we fasted and besought our God for this, and he was entreated of us. You know, many times we can say, well, we're just going to have to trust God. And that's something that we all say probably very frequently. But sadly, many times we say, well, we're just going to trust God. And then we go and try and solve the problem, trying to figure out what we can do to fix it, to try and conquer whatever the enemy, if you will, might be. Well, we have a good example in Ezra of putting your money where your mouth is. Well, we already said we're going to trust God. And so we're just simply going to trust God. We're not going to go to the king. We're not going to go to any external source. And that really is a powerful faith that we see in Ezra. He already said God's going to do it. Then he had to live his life like he believed that God was going to do it. And even a step further, he had to lead God's people in the same thing, saying that God will do this. And that's an encouragement to me to think we can all do that. We can put our money where our mouth is. We can take a step of faith, but let's just stay with it. Let's not just say the word. Let's put some action to it and say, I'm just going to trust God. Again, the end of this passage. So we fasted and besought our God for this, and he was entreated of us. God blessed them. God protected them. God watched over them. So let's just trust God. Let's say it. But then let's go and just do it and not try and find every other external solution to our problems, and just simply trust God. Well, I hope this has been a blessing to you. See you on Sunday morning.